Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I'm sitting here next to my fantastic partner,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome to another wonderful episode of 91.6 FM FreedomRadioHour.com, along with D-Wild Music Radio.
Yes.
What's going on, Adam?
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to see you as always.
Yes.
Let me take a moment to let our listeners and our viewers know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. We got to step up front and just thank everybody who's sharing and posting and commenting all under our videos and our podcasts. Take a moment and subscribe or leave a review, leave a 5-star review for us. Let us know what you think. Anyway, we got to jump out in front. I have a little bochinche.
Yes. What is the bochinche? You know I live for that word.
Yes, the bochinche has to do with Mr. Ajit Pai. You remember him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Who was he for viewers that don't know?
White House FCC
chair.
Yes. And, yes. What did he do now? Or what is he professed to have done?
Okay, so you know the short of a long story is that Ajit Pai, under his leadership at the FCC, has really been the guy that's spearheaded the repeal of net neutrality.
Yes.
You know, and that was the premise, that all of the data transmitted on the internet was treated equally up until now. And what he was doing was citing the following argument. He was saying, look, what we need to do is create more innovation and more creativity and competition. And so what we want to do is we want to open things up so that the telecom industry could innovate. And so he repealed net neutrality, which kept all of that data equal. And so now it opened the floodgates for things like fast lanes, and the more you pay, the faster your data transmits. He also managed to pull funding that was going to expand rural communities' access to broadband. So between those two things, it was a really heavy lift in a short amount of time. Well, as it turns out, he has really ruffled the feathers of constituents, so politicians are starting to disagree with him, even his own side. And what am I talking about? It's exactly those rural communities, because those people vote. And they have politicians that should need to answer to the FCC's loosening of all those rules and such, so that they pull the funding from their communities. What are you shaking your head at? See, if you don't see
my countenance.
Well, for those that are listening and not watching, you have to understand the facial expression that Mr. Eddie is giving. Talk about that.
Why is it that people consistently vote against their rights and what they need for their communities? That could have been avoided.
Yes.
Had people in those communities where that funding was pulled from paid attention. But thank goodness for the grassroots organizations and the communities, and also for the governments that basically stood their ground to make sure that none of that was going to happen.
Right.
To those that did allow it, again, capitalism.
Yes, and you make a really strong point. There's a film or documentary, and I think it's based on a book. That's What's Going On with Kansas? I think I might have the title wrong. But it talks about that very theme. Why do people consistently vote against their interests? And that really is part of what you're seeing here. This idea that let's all jump on, say, the GOP bandwagon. That's the Republican side for those that
Here
are
in the States.
In the States, correct. But once you see the fruits of that part of the argument, you start to reconsider your positions, especially as it relates to your everyday access to the internet. And that's what the FCC is really dealing with. Now, he got in the crosshairs of his boss, our current president, because Ajit Pai evidently is behind the termination of any possibility for Sinclair to merge with Tribune Media. They were going to merge, and something occurred to allow that to pause or to be stalled for a while. And so Mr. Trump has let Mr. Pai have it because of what he thought was a colossal mistake. Anyway, so I think what we need to talk about is what's happening. Okay, so you have this repeal of net neutrality. You have really nobody putting up much of a fuss on that side around the repeal of net neutrality. But the interesting thing is that we were testing out this argument that perhaps it was going to drive up innovation. So you see a lot of different kinds of products. Well, it turns out that Verizon just issued an announcement, because part of the removing the funds for those rural communities in terms of their access to broadband, those funds were given elsewhere. And you know who were given to? The telecom industry, because they were charged with building those infrastructures to expand, say, the 5G network. But Verizon just recently announced that, listen, we're not speeding up our efforts to develop our FG service because of this political judgment, if you will, or this political back and forth. What we're doing is we're steadfast in our plans, and yes, we'll get to it, but they're not bothered to speed up the process to expand access in these communities. So they took the money and they're not doing what they're supposed, because they're not bothered. Why would they be bothered? They have other things to do.
But not only that, my question is, Verizon is a billion dollar company. Why are they taking money anyway? They should be giving back and putting into those infrastructures and into those communities.
Because what you have corporate companies in bed with the politicians. That's why you're seeing this. You're seeing this because the politics is meeting corporatization. The twos come together, and it creates strange bedfellows. You have, in a certain sense, one roadway that works for them up until a point, and then a fork is there, and all of a sudden, those sides that were supposed to be together are all of a sudden against each other. And that's what you're seeing now with Ajit Pai. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him either resign, move on, be replaced, or some public scrutiny occurs.
He's going to resign. Too bad we don't have the days of the revolution with the guillotine. Money, 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 money. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. We'll be right back. DYMusicRadio.com. Freedom Radio Hour, y'all. Come back.
Come back.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people, and welcome back. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, DYMusicRadio.com, and the Freedom Radio Hour. My name is Eddie Nicholas, and I am here, and you know it, with my knowledgeable, I guess I'm Laurel Hardy, I don't know, Lou Costello, we one in the same, I don't know. But this gentleman right here, the one and only,
Mr. Adam Cruz, and you're rocking now with us at the Freedom Radio Hour, where you're your #1 source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. We were talking about what's going on in politics as it creates strange bedfellows once you start making decisions that affect us all, right? Moving forward, speaking of things that affect us all, I wanted to talk about Miss Taylor Swift.
What did she do? And you know what? She is a megastar, and I don't know near a Taylor Swift song. I'm have to rectify that.
Wait, so right now, if we played a Jeopardy game and you heard a song, like Name That Tune, for example, you would fail?
If it had to do with a Taylor Swift song.
Okay. Well, listen, Taylor Swift has become quite the influencer.
Yes, she has.
So a few things, just the short of a long stories for those that are unaware about Taylor Swift as it relates to the music business. Taylor Swift really used her pop stardom as a platform to address issues around the music business. Remember way back when Spotify was all glad to promote their freemium model? That was that period of time where you could sign up for the service for free, enjoy the music, and then they're trying to get you to buy into the service when they change over to premium. So we go from freemium to premium. So Taylor Swift and her people said, open letter, hold up, pause. Why is it that during that little free period, no one's getting paid? Are they getting paid? No? Why not? Artists need to get paid, even though you offer this free trial period. So Spotify had to change their tune and change their plans, and they indeed offered a fraction of a penny per stream for that free period. Now, for you and I, so we can understand it, it's less when it's free trial, more when it's premium. What does that mean? That us as artists, every time you hear Eddie Nicholas Shake or Eddie Nicholas's cover of a Gene Carn classic that I love, Was That All It Was? When you listen to Was That All It Was, which is available to stream everywhere when you're listening, and it's the free trial on Spotify, you chose not to pay, he gets even a reduced fraction of a penny per stream. When that person starts to pay their $10 a month for the premium service, now Eddie can enjoy a fraction of a penny per stream, just a little bump up. But before that, before Taylor Swift got involved, there was zero that was being earned during that free period.
During that free period,
She did it again in 2015 when she called out Apple and asked, are you compensating artists during the free trial during that period as well? And they had to change their tune. So she has done it again, arguably. She's just renegotiated her deal with her record label, which is Universal. So in one of her, in terms of the terms of her contract, she has one little clause. The one clause affects every artist on Universal. The clause is this: I will not sign on the dotted line unless you agree that the stake that you own in Spotify, when you decide to sell that portion that you own in Spotify, that amount needs to be interspersed between all of the artists, and it's not to be held against them. In other words, you can't use it to recoup costs. So if they're unrecouped, you're still going to break them off their portion of the sale of those shares. Universal owns 5.7%, I believe, of the shares of Spotify. When they sell it, it could garner as much as $800 million. So Taylor Swift, in order to sign on the dotted line, Universal agreed that when they do sell their shares, that they will intersperse those profits amongst all of the members in Universal's roster, which is not going to be held against them, which I think is a huge step. I wouldn't be surprised.
That means once they sell it, you're going to get a check because they sold this company.
Exactly.
And you don't have to worry about it coming from any other source, but strictly from that sale.
Yeah, they're not going to hold it against you. In other words, if Universal says, wait, Eddie, before we pay you, you still have $18,000 in
that
expenses.
You need to pay us back.
They're going to still cut you the check the same amount as the others. So they're not holding that against you, which is a good look. The other two companies, Warner Music and Sony, they too have instituted a similar policy, except Warner is not ignoring the unrecouped balances. In other words, they said, we're going to pay you your share from the sale of our shares of Spotify. However, we're going to hold it against you if you have a negative in your account. So it's funny how these different things affect. I wouldn't be surprised that the really interesting, strange bedfellows that you see as biggest winners in the music business for 2019 will be Taylor Swift and Donald Trump. You know why? Because Trump is really responsible for signing the Music Modernization Act into law. By doing that, he is really forever attached to our big win in our royalty game. We've been suffering a lot, and we really have him to thank to sign it into law.
And you know what? Those are the type of things that we wish we could celebrate. However, so much gets convoluted, and we miss those things. Thank you so much for talking about that. I applaud you for doing one thing right for the music industry.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the power of words and how you post on social media and how it could affect your bottom dollar.
Not
right
only
here,
post, but what you say.
Yes, we're going to talk about all that right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, D-Wild Music Radio.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio, 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, and on the web at dwildmusicradio.com. You're deep in the zone, right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your #1 source for music business news and trends from around the globe. I'm sitting here next to my fantastic partner,
Eddie Nicholas. How are you doing, my beautiful, beautiful people? What's going on?
All right, we need to talk about a bit of a soft, delicate, controversial topic.
Okay.
So it's about what you say and what you're writing in your social media posts. Let's talk about what's occurred recently. You know, we have a DJ producer, legendary status, person by the name of Paul Johnson. If you don't know his record, one of my favorites is Get Down, 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 Get Down, Down, Down. Anyway, so Mr. Johnson has found himself getting down, down, down into some hot water.
Oh.
Well, let me explain what happened.
Not tepid, but hot.
But real hot. Essentially, what's going on is he used words that basically triggered quite a bit of a response in the dance music community. What did he say? Well, it was in response to the violence that occurs, particularly in Chicago and surrounding areas. And I understand.
So we're talking about domestic violence,
gun violence, correct.
Okay, corruption.
Yes, so he's talking about folks that are victims of these things, domestic violence and gun violence in particular. His comment was, and I'm paraphrasing so that I can be clear about that. His comment alluded to the fact that, well, if we acted right, you wouldn't get shot up in public. And so the response was, well, what do you mean? How is it that a victim how is a person supposed to act to avoid getting shot? Or how is a person supposed to act to avoid getting physically abused, for example? So it got really heavy, and it also, I realized that we've never on this show have ever talked about what happens when you say the wrong thing.
And when I'm hearing from you, I guess I just keyed in on the operative word. Didn't you say if we acted right?
Yeah, if you acted right, you wouldn't get shot up. In other words, act right.
Who is the yous?
Right.
Who are the yous you were talking about?
And then my second question is, what is the definition of acting right, according to you, Mr. Johnson? So that obviously sparked quite a bit of an outrage, because what you have are these words, whether you're aware of them or not, are similar phrases used in these incidents. Domestic violence, look what you made me do. We talked about Taylor Swift earlier. She caught some backlash over those lyrics in one of her songs, because look what you made me do is typical phrases you hear in a domestic violence situation. Also, when you're talking about gun violence, the last thing you want to do is to pretend that we need to act a certain way, and that makes gun violence avoidable. It happens anywhere. It could happen in the safest of neighborhoods, quote unquote.
And it has.
And it has.
And continues.
So it seems not only short-sighted, but very ignorant for him to have allegedly said that. Now, I say allegedly because we're in the power of social media, where people can take words, misconstrue them, snapshot, screenshot, all kinds of things to make you seem a certain kind of way. But it does spark a conversation, because we are in the Me Too era. We are in the time and space where we are dealing with xenophobia, anti-Semitism. We're dealing with
police brutality.
Exactly, homophobia, transphobia. There's a lot going on and so in other words, it's not made up that we're in this climate of a lot of aggressive behavior back and forth. And we have to be careful what we say. But I wanted to talk also about, what does it mean to be who you really are as an artist? Do we have to watch what we say? You wanted to make a really great point of one of our favorite R&B singers, who's always sort of risque and always bordered on.
Scott.
Yes, she's always bordered on sexuality, and she's explored those topics. Talk about recently what happened to her in the name of what's social media.
Well, it seems like she got she got praise and she got backlash.
Yes.
So she got it all.
She got the mixed bag.
Yeah, she got the mixed bag of nuts.
Yes.
She was at a performance, and in that performance, she did wonderful little things in some people's eyes with the microphone, in the air of the microphone.
Yeah.
Other people found it very tasteless. Other people found it to their liking.
Right.
You know, some people were caught in the middle.
Yes.
But anyway, it became very, very noteworthy and newsworthy of the day because of what she did. So, you know, again, how do you do the artistry compared to what you're feeling, how you get lost in the sauce, your soul, a whole bunch of things come into play when you're on the stage. So
yeah, and I think it's so funny how we'll have we'll feel outrage over like the comment like Paul Johnson might have said, right? But then we also tend to fake outrage over her sexual suggestions. I'm talking about Jill Scott now. And so I'm just feel like we're in this interesting time where we're so sensitive about so many things, yet we want to push the dialogue forward about we want to progress in some way.
And you know the crazy thing about all of this stuff was explored in the 60s.
Right, like it's nothing's nothing's original. This goes back to even, I hate to connect the dots here, but the Robin Thicke Marvin Gaye case is the same premise. You want to argue that inspiration is copyright infringement, but nothing's new anymore.
Nothing is new.
And the sexual suggestions that Jill Scott made on stage,
Nothing's new.
People were beginning to post, if you paid attention,
Millie Jackson.
Yes, Tina Turner. Yeah, I mean they were posting because they called.
Even Aretha.
Yeah, all of them were doing had their time in the sexual sun, if you will, in terms of them as artists and performing that live. And then we go to fast forward. You think about Madonna, think about Janet Jackson and all the artists today that have come up on the backs of these artists, you know?
Well, you know, people like to be intrigued. And if an artist can transfer them into a fantasy realm through their performance, then they're going to do it.
Yes, but there's a cost sometimes for that. And then going back to the Paul Johnson situation, when he made those kinds of comments, on the one hand, you say, well, freedom of speech, he has a freedom to use his platform to respond to whatever's out there, right? But the cost is promoters that booked him for his gig
Did not like what he had to say.
and they canceled on him. So that affected his bottom dollar. So now you have to not only be careful what you say, but realize that what you say may affect your chances of the gig falling through or the possibility of a future gig, because you don't know who's reading or engaging with you.
And not only what you say, what you do.
Right.
Especially if you are attached with brands.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of times you really have to be careful, and you have to often just back up or just remove yourself from certain situations that you know fire will catch to it.
Right.
So
and also, I think it's important to say, let's not downplay the fact that, like, this is an educational moment. This is a teachable moment. We all need to understand that, yes, we can stand to be a little less sensitive towards each other. Okay. But the bigger thing, I think, is to learn that, yeah, you shouldn't be using words like, if we act right, then we wouldn't get shot up. That is so short-sighted to be nice. And I think we need to learn finally. It's only going to be 2019.
Because you could be one of them very people that get shot up.
Exactly.
And you wasn't acting any old kind of way. You just happened to be
in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly.
And then what somebody's going to say, well, if you weren't into that house music, they would have shot you up. So you have to be careful that that same argument doesn't come back to bite you. Anyway, that's all the time we have today. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Make it your business to check out my brother, Eddie Nicholas, and his Do You Wanna Dance album, available everywhere. Check out my new single entitled Trust Your Instincts, Vote. Check that out. It's available everywhere. Stream it today. And also, download our app. You know, we have a free app for Android and iPhone users. Free episode contains the podcast. We have mixtapes. You can buy the music. You could also check out our videos, all in the touch of your fingertips. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend and a great week ahead.
Peace and love. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, DY Music Radio, Freedom Radio Hour.
Peace.